and welcome to Risk Awareness Week 2022. Let me jump into what I wanted to talk about today. I usually start with introducing the conference and giving you some very important messages to set up the context for the whole week. So I wanted to start by sharing what prompted this session, because on LinkedIn I ran 2 polls and both of them seem to be quite representative, more than 100 votes. At the time I took the screenshots. It was actually a little bit more when the polls ended. And so I was trying to investigate what is the underlying kind of reason behind doing risk analysis, because risk analysis is quite time consuming and it takes a lot of effort. And some of the quantitative risk analysis also requires skills and competencies. So I thought, well, surely one of the main objectives for doing risk analysis was to make or save money for your organizations, or in other academic terms, to help achieve objectives. And objectives are most of the time somewhere around making or saving money. Even if you're a non-for-profit, to fulfill your mission, you need to keep the costs reasonable. So saving money helps there a lot. And you need to make money, but as in get funding to achieve your non-for-profit mission. So again, I'm simplifying this quite a bit, but the message in my mind was crystal clear that the only reason why you would do risk analysis, especially quantitative risk analysis, is to help companies make or save money. And so I was amazed when I asked that question to my social media contacts, and most of them said that theoretically risk analysis should save money, or maybe it can indirectly save money, but only 10% responded that they already did make or save money for their companies. And I was amazed, because I was expecting the vice versa. I was expecting 90% of the people making and saving and really kind of having tangible, direct, immediate effect from the risk analysis. It turns out it's actually the opposite. 90% of the people think there should be some value, but they're not generating it just now. So that was amazing. And then the next question, my follow-up question, surprised me even more, because I said, well, if you could make or save money for your company from risk management, where would you start? Like, what would be your go-to saving? And this is a trick question, and I'm devious in that sense. I like trick questions. There are 4 options, and 4 options only because LinkedIn allows you 4 options. 4 options, out of which the first 3 are real save today and tomorrow and yesterday hardcore cash options. And then the 4th one is this kind of hypothetical long-term benefit of risk management. And I was amazed that 74% went for the hypothetical future option, as opposed to saving money today. And so this kind of became the theme for the whole conference. Risk management is not hypothetical feel-good discipline that improves corporate governance. No, risk management can save you millions of dollars today, and unless it does right now, you have something to improve on, because that was one of the reasons why I was named Fairmar's Risk Manager of the Year last year, and we got a special honorable award from RIMS in US for the case study where we actually took quantitative risk analysis and saved $13 million on insurance. And that's just insurance. We also started saving on procurement, and the other risk team responsible for credit risk, they were saving money on credit risk, and the other risk team responsible for market risk, they were saving money on market risk. So risk management is not some hypothetical feel-good discipline. It's a very pragmatic, quite scientific approach to improving decisions, and you don't have to improve long-term strategic decisions to save money. You can save money immediately. So this was the context for my session, and very soon I will explain how all of this kind of fits together and give you some examples. But before we do that, I just wanted to start with something exciting, because I was amazed. I thought risk management was a given, that it should, if you do risk analysis, it better save some bloody money, because otherwise what's the point? And it's definitely not to generate a risk report or satisfy a regulator. This is just how weird it is. Regulators create regulations so the companies can improve the quality of their decision making and make and save money. Not so they create reports to respond to the regulators. The intent is not reporting. Reporting was never the intent. It was always making a difference, creating value for the shareholders. Now, let me kind of dive into the content. So this is now serious. This is important risk management information. First, I need to set up the context for the discussion. What is risk? Risk in the context of this conference, risk is not a definition that you see in ISO or COSO. Risk is not a color. Risk is not a number like 25. Risk is not a word, high, medium, low. For us and for all the other speakers, you have to appreciate that risk is a quantitative measure of uncertainty, and it can be represented by at least three different types of distributions. Risk, it could be an uncertain event that has a probability of happening or a frequency of happening if it happens more than a single time in a given period, and it has an uncertain impact. And that's basically two distributions multiplied together. To multiply distributions, you usually have to run a simulation, Monte Carlo simulation. So that's one type of risk. It's something that you would normally see in the risk register, and you can turn any qualitative risk register into a quantitative risk register almost at the push of a button. And I'll give you some examples of that. So number one, risk is some uncertain event that, if it happens, and however many times it happens, may have some uncertain impact on the cash flow or some other objective. So that's just one example of what is risk. But then the second example is it could be uncertainty, it could be a set of discrete scenarios. For example, whenever we built a large chemical plant, we always had uncertainty around what would be the taxation regime that the government will approve for that investment project, what sort of tax support the company will receive. And we had a number of different scenarios that were outlined in the legislation, but we didn't know which one we would be successful in getting. So that we had 5 scenarios, and each scenario had a different probability of occurring. So that's also a risk. And then, of course, the final, which is actually the most common risk type in risk management 2 world, but very rare in risk management 1 world, is volatility of assumptions. So for example, when you're building something, your assumption is that the materials will arrive in 2 weeks. Well, they may or may not. They may actually arrive somewhere between 10 days and 20 days. That's a range. That's uncertainty. Or, for example, you are investing in something and you need to know what is the inflation or currency. And again, inflation and currency, they're not single numbers. They're not single forecasts. They are always range of uncertainty. And representing risks as ranges is something that we take as a given when we talk about risk management, because representing uncertainty as ranges is literally the only known scientific way to deal with risks. And the analogy I like to make is that risk management, when you represent risks as ranges, probability distributions, and you assess or measure the dependency between different risks, you correlate them because risks are not independent. That's astrology. Sorry, no, I keep confusing them. That's astronomy. Astronomy as in the science that takes humans to space, astronomy. And then using qualitative scoring, high, medium, low colors, or saying likelihood is 1 to 5 and consequence is 1 to 5, and then multiplying these 5 and 5, giving you 25. That's astrology. That's horoscopes. That has really nothing to do with risk management. So you have to keep in mind that everything we will discuss from this point onward requires you to appreciate that risks are distributions. They are ranges. And there are different mathematical ways of representing risks. But unless you kind of move beyond that first appreciation, it will be more difficult to understand everything else that will be discussed in the conference. Now, there are workshops that will help you kind of move into that space of understanding. So, don't worry if math side of risk management is new to you. You're not expected to have a PhD in mathematics to understand 90% of the workshops. There are some workshops where there will be coding and modeling and coding in R or coding in Python, but that's only 10% of the week, and you have the choice of selecting other workshops. There are some workshops for the advanced audience. So that's the introduction. Now, the second message, the first message was risk is not a color, risk is not a word, risk is not a number, risk is a distribution. Risk is always a distribution. It always has been a distribution. It always will be a distribution. In fact, the irony is that the underlying science of risk management, the probability theory, is 500 years old. And the corporate ERM perception of risk, or this management direction of corporate risk management, is approximately 30 to 40 years old. So 500 years old, risk management 2, astronomy. 30 years old, risk management 1, astrology, horoscopes, tarot cards, and everything else that you can think of. Don't confuse the two. Now, the second message that I wanted to say is that it is important to separate value from wishful thinking, because a lot of the documents that have been published, especially all the marketing brochures by big consulting houses and a lot of the legislation issued by regulators, that's just wishful thinking, because they say, oh, you can do this. Like, for example, they say you can create a heat map and that somehow will allow you to make better decisions. No, it will not. It is never designed. And in fact, if you use it for decision making, you're more likely to make a worse decision if you did no risk management at all. And again, that's not my opinion. That's actually a quote from a research paper that investigated about 18 different methodologies for constructing a heat map. So you have to keep in mind that creating a risk register and using it for monitoring and reporting and sending out reminders to the risk owner saying you need to mitigate your risks and documenting some status in the risk register, that is not the end game of risk management. It never was. And in fact, even the regulators that require you to submit risk registers on regular basis, their intent was not reporting. The intent was better decision making. The unfortunate reality is that you can use the risk register for some of the decisions, very few, very minor decisions, but you can't use risk register at all for most of the important decisions where the real money is. And this is what I'll discuss in the next few slides. So unless risk analysis and the output of risk analysis leads to some sort of decision in the company, the value of the whole risk management process is not evident, and you have to be very mindful. So end game from risk analysis is not just risk reporting, it's not risk monitoring, and God forbid it's not KRIs. It's one of the following and probably more. Disclosure is one. So let's not discount regulators completely. Yes, we still have to provide disclosure to them. There's the audit committee, the external auditors, the internal auditors, full board, rating agencies, and regulators, central banks, ministries. You still need to provide disclosure to them. The good news is that's actually really, really easy and very quick, and I'll show you in a second. But then the real end game of making or performing risk analysis is improve your budgeting, improve your forecasting, make better investment decisions, save money through optimizing or re-engineering some processes, or make money through limiting risk exposure, for example, like in market risk. So the second point that I wanted to make is that risk management is not about having an up-to-date risk register. Risk reporting and risk dashboards is not the end game. It's like a small side product of what we do. Thanks, Shadi, for commenting. Yes, there are many stakeholders that want to see reports. That unfortunately doesn't mean that risk reporting is the ultimate end game of risk management. It was never the end game, and it still isn't. So I promised to talk about the kind of the future trends in risk management, and I purposefully narrowed down to risk analysis because that is, at the moment, should be, in my mind and in my experience, that should be the priority for the risk profession. Sorting out the risk analysis part of the whole risk management journey. There will be plenty of workshops throughout the Risk Awareness Week. By the way, sign up at the 2022.riskawarenessweek.com if you haven't, if you're watching this on LinkedIn or YouTube. Risk analysis is the one professional, it's the core competency of risk management professionals, and there are three important stages that you need to think about. So basically, and I think the English phrase for this is horses for courses, or horses for courses. I think that's the word. What this means is that risk is a distribution, and there are different parts to the distribution, and you can use different parts for solving different problems. All of them are equally important. There's nothing that is more important than something else. They just serve different purposes. And so there are, just like in the Basel regulations that banks and central banks all over the world are using, we in non-financial services can apply exactly the same logic. I've divided the types of risk analysis into three stages: basic, standardized, and advanced. And I'll describe each one. Basic is taking your risk register that you have today and turn it into a quantitative or stochastic and quantitative, same thing, into a quantitative risk register. That will allow you to get a loss curve that in turn will give you 3 important insights. And it also allows you to prioritize your risks. So you would be surprised that if you turn your risk register, existing risk register, and you prioritize the risk based on the quantitative output, the prioritization will most likely change from what you now have in your qualitative risk register. That's just how detached from reality the current qualitative risk register is. So stage number 1, basic. It's taking your existing risk register, turning it into quantitative. It can be done almost at the push of a button. Second stage, standardized. This is when you start trying to figure out what sort of controls do you need, what sort of mitigations you need to think about mitigating risk. And this is something where you have to be very real with yourself. To mitigate risk, you have to take one risk at a time and deep dive into that risk using some sort of technique. For example, a bow tie, a quantitative bow tie. It could be a quantitative decision tree. It could be a quantitative influence diagram. The message is that unless you deep dive into a specific risk, you cannot seriously have a conversation about mitigations, because whatever you have in your risk register, whatever the high level statements, that is not enough to be useful apart from some trivial things kind of obvious to everyone. In fact, you don't want to talk about mitigations at the risk register stage because you just kill your credibility with wasting everybody's time on some kind of basic obvious things. So standardized is deep diving into a specific risk, and because it's time consuming, you want to deep dive into only selected important risks. You can't really deep dive into everything, too time consuming. And then of course the last level, advanced, and I'll show you examples of all of this. The last level, advanced, is when you have a problem where you can save a lot of money or make a lot of money for the company, and you need to build a purpose-built model where you specifically design a calculator for that specific problem. And I'll show you examples of that as well. Thanks, Graham, for your question. It's a great question. So Graham is asking, he's asking on YouTube, so not everybody can see it. Graham is asking, if risk management 1 is astrology, and it is, why is it so dominant in the world, and especially in operational risk and financial services? It's very simple, because somebody took it and commercialized risk management to make it accessible to everyone. Somebody dumbed it down, and in the process of dumbing down, they lost the plot. Like they started from they started with saying, oh, we need beautiful dashboards and we need beautiful pictures, but then everybody forgot that it was only designed for beautiful pictures and quick dashboards and kind of initial high level subjective judgments, and they started using it as proper risk management. So it's easy, it's quick, it's accessible to everybody. So these are kind of the key to success in commercializing anything. And you can, I don't know, think of vitamins, the supplements, the food supplements, or think of a lot of the TV health exercises or new fad yogas, where it's like, do this 5 minutes a day and you will be successful. It's like, to achieve anything in life, it requires a lot of effort, and people don't like effort, and they don't have the kind of the willpower to continuously work and to achieve their objectives. So they want quick fixes. And risk management 1 was an awesome quick fix that everybody kind of jumped on board, because as you will discover in the future sessions that I'm doing, for example, with Sam Savage, I will talk a lot about generators and users. Just like generating electricity, only some people on the planet can do it, and yet everybody is using it. It's the same with probability. Only some people on the planet can generate distributions, and yet everybody can and should be using them. And I think this is where we're kind of going towards. So unfortunately, to be a generator, you need a degree in statistics or mathematics or decision science or probability theory or some other education, or corporate finance. You need some other relevant education. And yet we have millions of risk managers around the world who have absolutely no background in quantitative at all. And so they took what the consultants given them and they ran with it, thinking, well, wow, risk management is really easy. That's why so many internal auditors think that risk management is really easy. So I think that's the unfortunate reality that we commercialized the easy but the wrong approach so well that now it's kind of ever present. And I have to keep reminding people, heat maps are nice, but heat maps are 30 years old. People have been dealing with uncertainty and risks for the last 500 years, and they've done a much better job than heat maps. Okay. Ruslan is asking how we quantify and or predict risks associated with black swan events. Wrong question. I will touch on that in the future, because you don't need, well, first of all, you don't need to predict risks. That's not what risk management is about. But anyway, I'll talk about that. It's one of these excuses that people use to not do quantitative risk analysis. And Sam Savage and I have got this weekly webcast. We call it Chance Talk. And one of the videos that is available on the YouTube channel, on the Risk Academy YouTube channel, is specifically dedicated to kind of unraveling that myth. It's a myth. And it's never stopped anybody from quantifying all the other 99 million risks. Can I link? Amber is asking, can I link to the study of 18 heat map constructions and why they all completely failed? Yes, of course I can. I will obviously write a link in the chat when we finish, but it's very easy to find. It's called The Risk of Using Risk Matrices. Wonderful paper, available for free, and it's just one of many. Because make sure you listen to Doug Hubbard, who's speaking in a few sessions, I think in an hour or so, in an hour and a half, because he's actually compiled all of this information in his books. And one of his books is The Failure of Risk Management, Why It's Broken and How to Fix It. It's one of the best summaries of why risk management one never worked and it never will work in the future. Tamira is saying there are organizations that do not want effective risk management and require functions associated with just regulatory responses. Now, I mean, I see what you're saying. I do not believe that is true. Because if you can save any organization millions of dollars, and you can, and I did, with quantitative risk analysis, it really is a no-brainer. Come to any CFO and say, oh, we can optimize this, we can save a lot of money without losing any quality, without sacrificing anything. In fact, we've actually improved the quality of insurance coverage and still saved a lot of money. I mean, I use risk management in my personal life. Like whenever I need to make a decision, to purchase a house or rent a house, to relocate or not to relocate. I mean, I had a Monte-Carlo model for my wedding. And I have a Monte-Carlo model that Graham Keith, also another speaker at the Risk Awareness Week, he's speaking on Wednesday, that helped me build it. So yeah, I mean, I don't really buy it that there are organizations that somehow don't want risk management. I mean, they don't want risk management that they don't understand the value of. Once you put the value on the table where you can save a lot of money, it kind of becomes a no-brainer, at least in my experience. Jeroen is asking, how do you push a button and make risk register quantitative? I'll show you on the next slide. And Salma is asking, do you mean we need to make it practical by designing risk management programs that are specific to every business? Not really. It's not really what I'm saying. I'll illustrate it with the next 3 slides. So again, let me quickly remind you, basic. You already have a risk register. You take that risk register, you turn it into a quantitative risk register, and you get 4 valuable insights. I'll show you them in a second. Second level, you want to mitigate a specific risk. You need to do something about it. There are a set of techniques that allow you to do that. And you need to deep dive into a specific risk to actually start getting some insights into how to mitigate the risks. You can't mitigate risks at the level of risk register. That's not enough. Don't kid yourself. And then there are problems where you can actually save a lot of money. And sometimes that requires a very specific tailor-made model. And again, generators can do that. For majority of the people, so I'm just reminded, there are generators, basically quants, who know, who have all the answers to the questions, like how do you quantify black swan events? It sounds like a scary question for somebody who's not a generator. For a generator, that's really easy. And there are users, so the other 99% of the population, that have maybe some basic understanding of the math behind risk management, but they can't really build a model. So the users can stay at the basic level and maybe even move to the standardized level. These are 2 relatively simple stages. Advanced, of course, the last stage can only be done by generators. Again, don't kid yourself. It requires sophisticated risk modeling skills. For example, on Wednesday, I'm showing, no, on Thursday. On Thursday, I'm doing a workshop where I will illustrate how we build a calculator for quantifying risks to support our insurance decisions, and ended up saving millions and millions of dollars. By the way, real savings, not hypothetical and not subjective opinion, real hardcore cash savings. Last year it was this year it is this, and we actually improved the quality of coverage, sometimes 5 times, sometimes 2 times, significantly improved the quality of coverage without the sacrifices in the actual quality of coverage. So first, basic. You can take your risk register and turn it into a stochastic risk register by replacing your probabilities with distributions of frequencies, and by replacing your impacts with ranges of impacts, and then simulating, and then you can also correlate risks between one another in case they are related, because depending on whether risks are related or not related, your overall exposure may be bigger or smaller. And this is why correlation is so important. And that gives you, and if it's difficult to see, full screen this, there is a button on the right bottom of the screen where you push it and you can full screen full screen the video to view it. So this is what a loss exceedance curve looks like, and I think the red one is the unmitigated one, so basically your current risk exposure, and then the yellow one is the one where you start thinking, okay, well the overall current risk exposure is unacceptable. We need to do something about it, and you add different mitigations to see how does the risk exposure changes. And this loss exceedance curve, or this I don't know, let's call it for simplicity, let's call it risk profile. This risk profile has 3 super important pieces of information. All you've done is you quantified each of the risks. And by the way, when I said push of a button, there are software like Archer Insight that you can keep your risk register in, and then almost with the push of a button, you can convert your qualitative risk register into a quantitative risk register. Or there are templates available online where you can actually plug in, like you can copy paste your risk register into this template, and that template gives you the kind of the first version of the loss curve. But then there are software packages like Archer that do this automatically for you, which is just amazing. And so 3 important pieces of information. And I'm not going to go all technical, but these are the 3 things that even users, not just generators know that. That's kindergarten stuff for them. Users need to understand. It's called expected losses, and that's basically your average risk exposure. Expected losses, or EL, again, we don't recreate the wheel. This is the terminology that the regulators used in banks for market and credit risk forever. This is very old stuff. We're just finally rediscovering it for non-financial companies. And expected losses, or average risk exposure, is very important, because what this means is that risks will happen throughout the year. There's no risk-free year, there's no risk-free project. Risks will happen. And understanding what the expected losses are is important for 2 reasons. Number 1, you have to add expected losses to your budgeting. If you know you're going to lose this much money, for example, theft is a given in supermarkets. And that's why they just incorporate the cost of kind of the expected losses from theft into their budgeting process, so they're not surprised every year. And this is part of the kind of risk culture where business have to appreciate that risk is a given and somebody has to pay for that risk. It's not just somewhere in the vacuum that happens and everybody's surprised. Risk is going to happen throughout the year. So expected losses is super important because you need to budget for it. And second, that gives you an indication on how much money is reasonable to spend on mitigations. I am doing a session with Brian Putt later this week where we actually deep dive into one sample risk, and we show how we assess different effects of mitigations on the loss exceedance curve and how it changes the expected losses. So two important pieces of information, two important uses of expected losses. You have to calculate expected losses, and that gives you the amount you need to budget, and it gives you an indication on how much is too much for mitigation. Then it gives you the unexpected losses, which is usually your VAR, or 95th percentile, or it could be expected shortfall, it could be conditional VAR. The metric itself is secondary. Like a generator or somebody can help you figure out which metric is the best. But basically, expected losses give you another important piece of information that you need to give to your treasury department. And when they aggregate different risks across the organization and trying to figure out, is the company financially liquid? Is it stable? Are they going to have issues with liquidity? They are going to aggregate those unexpected losses together and use that as an indication to see if there is any risk of breaking down the covenants. Thank you, Gabo, for joining the YouTube channel. Very much appreciated. So unexpected losses, another super valuable piece of information that your treasury department can benefit from right now. So all of this is not hypothetical. Expected losses you can use right now. Unexpected losses you can use right now. And then, of course, Graham, also thank you for joining the channel as a member. Unexpected losses is also something that you can use right now. And then, of course, there's the final part of the distribution. So anything above 95th percentile or 99th percentile, whatever your risk appetite is within the organization. For example, our organization had 97.5 because our credit rating was, our target credit rating was I can't remember, BB minus or something, or triple B, and we wanted to kind of match the risk appetite with the target credit rating. And so the final bit of the distribution is called the tail. And this is basically all those catastrophic black swan events that are sitting on the tail of the risk distribution. And that's where you give it to the insurance team, to the business continuity team, or to the treasury team, who either hedge, create a BCM or BCP, or insure from the tail events. Marcus is asking a very important question. He's asking, are there instances where P50 median is better than the average expected loss? Because it kind of excludes the extreme tails. The one example where I've used P50 instead of expected loss was all the environmental risks. Water pollution, air pollution, because it's super fat tail, super heavy tail, there's like a very small probability that your plant will be closed for 90 days, and that's immediately millions of dollars lost. Our P50 was, our average was bigger than VAR P95. Our average was bigger than P95 because the tail was just so ridiculously big. And so we ended up using P50 in that. But most of the time you should be, unless it's a super fat tail distribution, you should be fine with the average. So you've just pressed the button in Archer Insight, or you converted your risk register manually into a quantitative risk register, and you immediately get 3 super valuable pieces of information. But that's not all. The 4th valuable piece of information, you finally get the kind of the good heat map, the good prioritization. You can rank the risks based on their exposure or some other metric, and prioritize them using a tornado diagram. And that, again, what you will find completely surprising is once you convert your risk register into a quantitative risk register, you'll be amazed that the priority in the quantitative risk register would be significantly different from the original priority you had on your heat map, where you had 5 in red and 3 in yellow, and so on. Plus, the other point that is available, there's this whole science around utility theory, and watch Doug Hubbard's workshop later today. He kind of talks a little bit about utility theory and gives some references. It's a very important utility theory because it allows you, again, you think not all risks can be quantified, and you think, well, how do you deal with safety and environment and reputation? These are all the things that have been dealt with and solved by scientists decades ago. We're just not aware of that. All of this is new to us, and we think, oh, this is an impossible problem to solve. It is not an impossible problem to solve. It's actually a very simple problem to solve, because there's this whole utility theory which allows you to convert different risks into a single metric. I don't know, let's call them UTIs or utils. And then you can rank risks based on utils, and you can prioritize risks based on utils. So there are mathematical ways of dealing with all of these scary problems that most of the risk managers think they face. You don't really face them because somebody already solved it. You just need to find the person who solved it, read the book, or outsource that part of analysis to somebody to do it for you, or use a software that already built all of the methodologies behind the scenes, and you can just apply it automatically. So let me quickly respond to questions. Okay, so Salma, your question is probably a little bit too broad. I'll try and respond to it in writing, because clusters is not really the right word. Risks are interconnected. They're correlated to one another. And there is a mathematical method for linking risks together into, well, I guess clusters, if you want to call it that way. You can actually link risks together and saying this one, if this happens, then this is more likely to happen. If this happens, then this is actually less likely to happen. And that really dramatically changes your overall risk exposure, because your risk may look like it's 100, but when you actually incorporate different correlations, the risk may actually be 50, or it could be 200, depending on what the relationships are. So it's very important. What technique, Rico is asking, what technique is best to quantify political or geopolitical risks? That's a very good question, because this is it. Like, this is what you see in front of your screen. A bow tie, a quantitative bow tie, is by far one of the best and simplest techniques. Again, there are software packages that can automate it for you, or you can do it manually on a napkin, like I did. Sometimes, like in my previous job. And bow ties and decision trees are some of the most powerful techniques for quantifying softer risks. Because what I'm trying to say when I'm saying softer, there are certain risks that have clear methodologies. For example, credit risk. You don't need to recreate the wheel. There's a whole legislation written on how to quantify credit risk. You just copy it. Like risk. You don't have to recreate the wheel. There's a whole methodology, the regulation written on how to quantify market risk. Certain environmental risks. There are local guidelines and methodologies issued by Ministry of Finance or Ministry of Economics or Ministry of Nature Preservation that literally spell out how to quantify certain risks. And for others that there's no clear guidance, bow tie is the place to go. It literally helps you quantify most of the risks. Catch Graham Keith's workshop later this week, where he will explain how bow ties work and pros and cons of using that and other techniques. So I'm not, because I only have 8 minutes left before the next workshop, and I want to leave you enjoy Grant Purdy's, who I highly recommend as the next workshop. I need to finish quickly. Second level, standardized. Basically, you want to figure out what the risk is. You need to deep dive into a specific risk. Bow ties are super powerful for that. And they allow you to basically improve on your risk estimate and allow you to prioritize different parts of the business based on the risk exposure. And then, of course, the final level is advanced. And to that, I'm not going to touch on that now, because I have a whole workshop dedicated to advanced models on Wednesday. Yes, on Wednesday, how to quantify risks for insurance purposes and save a lot of money. It is insurance focus, but it's not really about insurance. Even if you're not looking after insurance in your company, even if you understand nothing about insurance, it's not important. It is an illustration on how we used tailor-made quantitative risk models to completely change the nature of how decisions have been made and saved millions along the way. That specific example, we ended up saving 3 million by improving the quality of coverage 2 times. All right, 2 questions that I see. Vaishani says, shifted to quantitative risk management a few months ago. Everything seems to make sense. Thank you. And by all means, write more comments. Share a story. Feel free to share a story. Share something that would amazed you. Because some of the things that when we did quantitative risk analysis completely amazed me, because everybody intuitively thought one thing, but then we quantified, it actually turned out to be something completely different. So a complete surprise. Mustafa is asking, what about the qualitative risks that you can hardly quantify and majority vetted different? So there are no such risks that you can hardly quantify. I think that's one of the inputs. The reason why you think there are risks that you cannot quantify, and the only reason why you think there are risks that you cannot quantify, is because you haven't found the person yet who quantified that specific risk about 1 million times. And we've quantified all sorts of unimaginable risks in our company back in the day. So that is not a problem. Give it, ask in the questions, ask examples. And by the way, I will probably be able to direct you to different workshops. For example, somebody asked about geopolitical. There is a workshop. Michael is doing a workshop again on the 19th of October. He's doing a risk workshop on the geopolitical risks. So just speak to people who have already done it, because there's so much experience in the world, and I'm just glad that I'm able to bring them together into a risk awareness so we can share that knowledge with you. Okay, Doug is asking a question. Okay, so I think my simple answer is, once you move into the space of talking about controls and trying to figure out which controls are better or worse, which have more effect, you need to deep dive into a specific risk, into a bow tie diagram. At least a bow tie diagram. It could be a decision tree, but you need to deep dive into a specific risk. At the risk register level, you don't have enough ammunition and information to support decision making. Now, by the way, if you're watching this on the conference website, don't forget to upvote and share on social media this page. If you want, especially if you want somebody from your co-workers, send this to your team. If you want somebody to watch this workshop. Okay, Salma is asking, offers a framework that help create and maintain value. Question. Well, ISO is a very high-level kind of marketing document. It is a nice summary of different sciences behind risk management. Alex Daly later today is going to do a workshop on ISO 31000 and how to kind of make that bridge from theoretical to practical session. So watch that. And then the second part of the question is very important. How do you compare your own methodology with the basics in ISO 31000? Okay, so I'm going to finish with this. This is absolutely fundamental. What we are talking about today and all of the risk week, all of the following 5 days is based on the underlying sciences, probability theory, decision science, and neuroscience. And Doug Hubbard later today is actually doing a very nice presentation summarizing how it all fits together. So don't miss that. And these underlying sciences have existed for hundreds and hundreds of years. ISO 31000 is the marketing summary. It's like an executive summary of these sciences. So if you follow the science, you automatically align, comply, and do even better than whatever ISO says and COSO says, because COSO and ISO, they're like executive summaries. Remember in school where you didn't want to read the big book, like War and Peace by Tolstoy, and it's like a huge book, and you just read like a summary of that book? Well, ISO and COSO are summaries of the underlying science. We skipped the standards because we don't need summaries. We already at the underlying science level, and so everything we do is 100% aligned with ISO. In fact, it's kind of the opposite way around. ISO is 100% aligned with whatever we do, because what we do is the underlying science. So hopefully I answered that question. Thank you very much for joining. Don't forget to upvote. Don't forget to go to the conference website 2022 riskawarenessweek.com and comment on other people's comments. Have conversations, interact with one another. Keep it as valuable as possible, and share the workshops with the people you work with. Share the workshops with your social media friends. This is the whole idea of risk awareness. We're trying to raise awareness about proper risk management. And I hope you enjoyed it. Let me quickly answer. Join the other workshop. It started already. And let me quickly respond to the final question. Hekma, thank you. Pleasure. Long time no see. So far away from your talk, it seems to be a personal hobby only for me. Yeah, I mean, Risk Awareness Week is going to be online forever. Just watch whenever you can, and that's the whole reason why I created Risk Awareness Week. You don't have to just listen to me. And for example, I create an access code for a company where I worked, and I share Risk Awareness Week with everybody, because I don't want people to hear these messages from me. I want to hear these messages from like a NASA engineer or a Stanford professor or a PhD in mathematics. I don't have to explain it. I have much smarter people than me, much more amazing risk managers than me explaining it. So share all the workshops with the colleagues that are not supporting your risk management journey. Help them kind of switch their brain to the quantitative risk management too. So anyway, thank you very much. I very much appreciate you joining the session. We have close to 500 people online right now, and I'll see you in the next workshops.